Kurt Brownich, Global News, also for the Deputy Prime Minister. If you could approach the podium again and just make sure my framing is okay here.
I appreciate it.
How concerned are you about U.S. retaliation on Canadian companies due to the digital services tax?
Thank you for the question. And I think it's worth starting by being very, very clear that Canada's preference is and always has been a multilateral solution on the DST, a multilateral agreement around Pillar 1. Canada also has been and continues to be engaged in bilateral conversations with the United States about a win-win outcome for our two countries, which are so closely connected. When it comes to the DST, Canada has played a big role, and we as a country made a big sacrifice in the work towards a multilateral solution. And we made that sacrifice by agreeing to pause our DST. We committed to doing that until the end of 2023 because there was an international commitment to get Pillar 1 done by then. That didn't happen. And we didn't get Pillar 1 done by the end of June either. And it was simply not reasonable, not fair for Canada to indefinitely put our own measures on hold. I think it's also really important for Canadians to understand that a number of other countries have a DST in place right now, and they have had a DST in place for a number of years with no retaliation. Those countries include our G7 allies and partners, the UK, France, and Italy. And as Canada's finance minister and as Canada's deputy prime minister, I can't accept Canada permanently being in a discriminated position. I can't accept Canada permanently or indefinitely being in a worse position from our allies. So that's why Canada needed to move forward. And then just in closing and addressing sort of the nub of your question, we have acted collaboratively at all times. We have been and continue to work really hard to achieve a multilateral solution. We have specifically been working very hard and very collaboratively with the U.S., and I am confident that a win-win outcome, a negotiated win-win outcome for Canada and the U.S. is absolutely possible. And we've been very clear with the U.S., with our multilateral partners about Canada's position and where Canada would need to go absent a multilateral deal. And then just finally, on the question of retaliation, we really believe a win-win outcome is possible. We believe that the way to achieve that is to negotiate in good faith, to negotiate creatively with our multilateral partners and with the U.S., and also to be strong.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Hi, this is for Minister Freeland again. Katie Newman, CBC.
I don't want to presume.
So last week, Ontario Finance Minister Peter Bethlen-Falvey asked you to pause the implementation of the DST, fearing that it puts targets on the backs of Canadian industries. You've gone ahead and implemented it anyway. Can you explain why?
Yeah, I think I gave a pretty full explanation. But maybe let me emphasize. Right now, a number of our allies and partners, including G7 countries like the UK, like France, like Italy, have a DST in place. They are collecting revenue from international tech giants, and that is revenue they are using to invest in their people. It is just not appropriate. It's not right for Canada to accept indefinitely being in a worse position than the UK, than France, than Italy. It's just not okay. There's no justification for that. And I think we are all agreed as Canadians, we have such a crying need for investment in so many things in our country, whether it is housing or making life more affordable or investing in productivity and growth. And we also know that we need to make those investments in a fiscally responsible way because we want interest rates to keep on coming down. So we need revenue for those investments. And in the current situation, Canada is worse off from some of our allies who are not facing any retaliation. That's just not fair. It's just not okay for Canada and Canadians. It's not in the national interest. And it's my job to fight for and defend the national interest. And I do want to emphasize that at every step of the way, we have been very clear with our international partners about what we are doing. We have had detailed conversations with the U.S., working towards achieving a win-win outcome. And I have a lot of optimism around Canada's ability to get there.
And the USTR continues to express concerns about Canada's decision to move ahead. So could you just explain when the last time you spoke with your US counterparts about this was, and what did Americans say about potential retaliation, and how worried are you about what happens next?
So my counterpart is the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, who has been the U.S. lead on the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 conversations. I had supper with her about 10 days ago. We have had detailed, constant conversations about this. We have been very transparent and very clear with our U.S. partners about the steps Canada needed to take absent a multilateral solution. And we have had and continue to have detailed, substantive conversations with our U.S. partners about a win-win outcome for Canada and the United States. And that's something that we are very committed to working on, and I am optimistic that we can achieve. And I do really want to underscore here, a number of other G7 countries, a number of other partners of Canada and the US, UK, France, Italy, to name just a few, currently have a DST in place and are not subject to US trade retaliation. And you know, as finance minister and deputy prime minister, I just can't accept Canada indefinitely being in an inferior position to other countries who are our partners and allies.